Hi everyone, this is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for joining me for this week's question and answer time on my YouTube channel. If you're new, I will say welcome and thanks for being here. Feel free to go to my website, which is themodernshaman.net, to just get connected to me, find out kind of what I'm about, any sort of classes that I'm teaching, and how to schedule a one-on-one session with me, if that's something you feel led to do. Okay, so each Friday I release a new video, and I don't have it with me. Here we go. Right here. Here is the question for the week. I'm going to read it, and then we'll just dive in. So she says, Rachel, I have a habit of wanting for everyone the higher dimensional awareness. Do I need to slow my roll? It's in quotes. Or should I be the spastic self that I feel that my spirit is? I am maturing now and aware of how I come across to people, and I want to be my authentic self and not feel sidetracked by what others perceive me to be. What is the best practice to be in for alignment with my authentic self versus my ego self? So interesting question this week. So kind of how to align with a sense of highest vibrational self, your pure self, and authentic self, as she so perfectly worded it, versus the ego self. So let's dive into that, all right? Everybody loves that topic, right? I feel like my earrings keep hitting these. Do y'all hear that? I feel like my earrings keep hitting these little Bluetooth headphones. Hopefully you're hearing me loud and clear. Okay. First of all, I love this question because I completely resonate on a personal Rachel level. It's funny, when I started doing this work more publicly, and I started giving a lot of interviews and doing radio shows, and for a while I had, spots on regular weekly radio shows and did a lot more PR work at the beginning. And the first question you get is kind of like, who are you? What are you doing? And I really struggled with this question because identity and my alignment with identity was so fluid. It's still really fluid. I feel like that's part of, as you're evolving and being open to growth, there is constant change. There just is. I have had more change in my life since I have devoted myself to a sense of sacred path and sacred awakening than ever before. The stability is in the knowing that there will be change and evolution, and to expect and align with a fluidity to the sense of self, because even your authentic self takes on more and more higher awareness and adds broader and broader perspective. So even your sense of identity has to remain flexible and fluid and open in a way. So I remember one time I was doing an interview and someone said something about asking me who I was, and I was just like, you know what? I don't like identity. Can we just not ask that question? Can I just be me? But I get that it doesn't quite work when you're marketing, or you have to pick a keyword, or you have to find some sort of like link up, or pick a title, even shaman and these types. It's just like, I don't really identify with identity. And yet so much of our human understanding and human experience feels like it needs something to scaffold, if you're familiar with the term scaffolding, right? To bridge the next level of understanding, you have to have your feet on one level of a platform, right? So you have to understand one level of perception before you can move on to the next. That's a very linear human type of growth in understanding and perceiving. Identity is somewhat in there. Going back to your question, so I will tell you, from the heart space, your authentic self there's an easy differentiation between the two of your authentic self versus your ego self. And when you ask for a practice, like your last phrase is, what's the best practice to make sure I'm in my authentic self versus my ego self? The best practice is just alignment with love. Pure and simple. That's an easy one. When you're in an alignment with love, truly the ego dissolves. It's pure. You're essentially at that vibrational point, you're channeling. You're a channel of source energy. And there is no real you. You're an open valve that is flowing in the energy of love. The words that come out really have no sense of processing them through your cognition. A lot of times you don't even remember what you're saying. It does feel like channeling. And even when you're sharing or healing or working or creating art, whatever you're doing, whatever the doing aspect manifests as, it's done from a pure space of love, which is generous. There's nothing needed from that other individual. When ego is involved, there is an energy, albeit subtle. It may be subtle at times, but it's still present. And if you're sensitive to energy or perception, or you're observant in that maturity that you talked about, how you said you're maturing, through that maturity, you can be observant to the telltale signs that ego involves a sense of judgment. It involves a sense of control. It involves a sense of goal or determining factor, like something that you want from the other individual. So when you're sharing, this is a lot of times why people are very turned off by proselytizing or preaching or a conversion. There's a sense of like, you want something from that individual. You want them to turn around and say, I'll sign your waiver. I'll join your team. I will say that prayer. I will convert. I will whatever. There is a sense of something that's wanted, versus love is just generous. It's just giving. You're just giving of your heart. You're giving of your love. You're giving of your sense of self. You're giving, even if you're sharing information, it comes from a space of just giving. What they do with it is completely on them, and you have no sense of judgment or requirement of how they have to receive you. Instead, you just respect their sense of choice and free will in the way that they would like to sovereignly receive or not receive. It doesn't change your sense of being, that authentic self that you referred to, because you're in a space of love. You're just loving them. And love doesn't have a sense of pressure or control or dogma attached to it. It's just you being yourself. And that's a defining factor of that authentic nature that you described. So when you're coming from a space of wanting to share, like your first phrase of like, I have a habit of wanting everyone into this higher dimensional awareness, that's a beautiful meditation. That's a beautiful desire. That's a beautiful sense of unity. Stay in that unity consciousness, that oneness consciousness, that essentially everyone already exists there. Everyone already is there, and you can choose to align with that vibration of them at any point in being. Even someone who is doing something on a human level that seems repulsive, there is an aspect of their soul that is always aligned in that sense of purity and unification and love. This is why you can still connect with someone who's lying to you, but you can essentially come right into the point of the heart that still feels very pure. All of that sense of connection is always available to you. And any sort of control on the other side, like how you're received, and you shared that when you said, I'm maturing now and I'm aware of how I come across to people, and I don't want to be sidetracked by what others perceive me to be. That form of judgment, whether it's judging yourself or feeling like others judge you, or a mixture of the two, of just feeling judged or feeling the energy of judgment in the air, all of that is perceived on kind of that human level. When you're in that higher dimensional space, that multidimensional space, it's all good. You don't really care how they perceive you. In fact, you don't really even see, you're kind of blind to those perceptions. You're just being you. You're just being. It's very childlike in that energy. And I love that you said your, what did you say? What was that? Spastic self. I'm like that sometimes too. I have that energy that's very pure and spastic and joyful and just like silly, you know, that and joyful in my sharing. Like, oh my gosh, I just want to share this with you. This is just brilliant. I just love this. And that's beautiful. And then there has to be a sense of release to it, that like, I'm just sharing because I love you. I'm just sharing because I love what I'm experiencing and I enjoy it so much that I want you to have the same sense of love and connection and joy and experience. But then there is a release or an honoring that has that higher vibrational response of sovereignty to it that says, you know what, they may experience that form of joy, that form of elevation, that form of complete epiphany and spiritual connection from just tapping their toe to some music on the floor, where you may want to jump up and dance and be like, woo, I'm all about the music, you know. There's so many ways of connection that feel sincere. And I think that is the key, is realizing and honoring everyone's level of sincere connection. I don't think you ever need to come from the perspective of being something or someone for someone else. That's always a backwards, kind of distorted effort, and just makes you feel really chaotic and lost. And unfortunately, a lot of times we're brought up in this manner. We're taught to be this way around certain people, be this way around certain cultures, be this way around certain group dynamics, be this way, you know, and you can easily play those roles. But be aware that it is a role you're taking on. You're playing it. You're playing the play. You know what I mean? You're putting on the mask. You're playing the play. And it's not that that's who you are. You have a full sense of consciousness and awareness of the fact that you're playing the mom role when you're playing it. Your authentic self is there. Your genuine self is there. Your sincere heart is always present. But there is a sense of awareness in the many roles that you play. You being you should always still have that center of who you truly are, and realize that no matter what you're doing or the kind of environment that you're in, those things don't have any way of manipulating you. It's always coming back to you and what you decide to align with in that moment. If you choose to feel quiet and somber, that's also a beautiful aspect of you. That's truly you. That's there. That feels quiet. And also introverted, just as much as it does extroverted and spastic at times. You have access to all of those aspects of the self that are truly you. So always realize that this comes from you, even if you give yourself permission to be certain ways or play certain roles or fulfill certain needs that may come out when you're in certain group dynamics or work environments or family dynamics. It doesn't come from the outside. They're not manipulating you. You're choosing to fulfill and be certain aspects of yourself in those moments. So be at peace with that. There's a sense of alignment there that's very clear. The other thing I will say is just to always, the best practice, and I said this at the beginning, but I'm going to end with it too, is that always align with love. Am I coming from a space of love? Again, love has no sense of requirement back. It's generous. it gives of itself, and the energy from which it comes from has a sense of overflow. It is joyous. It is wanting to share and create and unite, but it doesn't have a sense of control or dominance or persuasion to it. It's open. It's open because it's creative, right? And their response also creates an energetic dynamic that then just can grow and grow and grow. It always has a sense of openness to it. So no matter how people respond, you're still in your sense of love. You're still in your sense of open, authentic nature of just sharing of yourself, sharing of your heart. If you're coming from that space of love, people feel it. No matter what you're saying, the energy, that's always a sense of telepathic communication. They're going to receive that, whether you call it nonverbal communication, whatever. I remember taking those classes in college and group dynamics and all that stuff. They're going to pick up on your heart and your sincerity and the depth at which you just want to love them. And a lot of times that's not even words. It's just your being. It's just the way you're being. Because you don't care if they agree with you or join your team or become a part of your religion or in sync with your sense of higher dimensional awareness. You just love them. You love them. And you're willing to just have a sense of being that love. It's funny. It feels more like you're interested in them than trying to be an interesting person, right? It has just a sense of pure being and love. It transcends all the words, all the desires or any end point. It just is, and that will be felt, pure and simple. No matter how spastic you are, no matter how quiet you are, love is felt. People feel it because it's the energetic core, it's a vibration. It comes through. So get clear with that, and there's peace in that always. You don't have to change or shift. It will change and shift. It's always ebbing and flowing, and like I said, growing. There's so much change in growth. Constant. But it's fun. It's a wild ride. Blessings to you. Stay tuned. We'll be back next Friday for another video. Love you guys.